it out anyway, so...
I'll trust you.
That's not a problem. Well, I'm here today with Marshal Damgard, author of the South Dakota State Capitol, the First Century, and we're just going to chat a little bit about his book and about whatever else comes to mind. So, thanks, Marshal. Thanks for coming down and talking to us.
Thank you.
You're welcome. First things first, I suppose. What made you want to write this book, or how did you come to write this book?
The South Dakota State Historical Society Press came to me several months ago and recognized that the year 2010 would commemorate the 100th anniversary of the completion of the construction of the state capitol. They said they wanted to mark the event with a book, and they asked me if I would be interested in writing that book. I said, of course I would. I'd love to write that book. And then the press made two very, very important threshold decisions. Number one, they said, Marshal, we don't want a book about just the building. We want it to be about far more than that. And I said, well, do you want to start with the glaciers? And they said, of course, get busy writing. And two, very importantly, the second decision was, they said, Marshal, we don't want you to write a book. We want you to tell a story.
Yeah.
And they probably got more of a story than they bargained on. But I've had a couple different people say to me, you know, this book reads like a tale told around a campfire in the woods. And that was the intent of it.
Yeah, I think that comes through very well in the book itself. And as you say, it holds more of a storytelling aspect than just a traditional history book. So, yeah, great. Now, there must have been many things that went through your mind and occurred while writing it. So, I guess, you know, something that's always kind of interesting is, from a personal aspect, what was the most rewarding thing about doing the book?
Frankly, when I started this project, I believe that South Dakota as a society does not yet have the respect and reverence for history that you find elsewhere in America. My examples are typically Virginia and Texas, right? States where history is worshipped. And I think we're behind those states for the simple reason that we're just not as old as those states, and a reverence for history, a respect for history, takes time to develop. Now, having said that, I started the project and I did a manuscript, and discounting and frankly rejecting the advice of friends of mine who are real authors and real historians, I sent the draft manuscript to 173 readers, and I was amazed to get back letters and emails from these manuscript readers saying, Marshal, thank you so much for giving me the wonderful and distinct opportunity to participate in this wonderful history project. And I thought, why are they saying this to me? I'm giving them homework, and they're talking about history and how meaningful it is in their lives. That surprised me. And it leads me to believe that a respect for history is farther down the road than I thought it was in South Dakota.
Those people's reactions led you to the conclusion that most of us are not taking that appreciation seriously.
But it's getting there. I think it's getting there in South Dakota. Yeah. And it comes with age.
Sure, yeah.
Age as a society.
Now, you mentioned that it went out to 173 people, or give or take. How much of an effect do you think they had on your final version?
They had a profound effect. I felt going into this that it had to be a book for all South Dakotans. And I believed that many Norwegians would look at this history differently from many Lakota.
Right.
And that many women would look at our history differently from many men. And I really thought that there is a collective intelligence out there, and I have to make use of it.
Sure. So were you able to hit all of those different demographics in your readers to kind of get those different interpretations?
Well, out of 173 people, I mailed it to all my friends, and then I quickly ran out of friends. So I mailed it to total strangers. Right. And I mailed it to people in little towns, big towns. I mailed it to very intensely political people. I mailed it to apolitical people. I mailed it to people in the West and people in the Jim River Valley and eastern South Dakota. And I tried to get as many different kinds of people as possible. I mailed it to amateur historians. I mailed it to professional academic historians, and they came at me with so many different suggestions and ideas and perspectives. I was amazed.
How did you narrow those down and to take sort of one narrative out of it?
Actually, I was surprised that there was very little overlap in the criticism, constructive criticism in the comments, and there were very few conflicts. I was really surprised that more often I didn't have to make a tough decision between one way or another way. They actually added aspects to the story rather than conflicts.
Great. So that was a sort of, I guess, almost a halfway point in the process. You'd already written the original stuff. You had it sent out to these people. You got ideas back, and then you moved on further. Going backwards, how did you do all the research, the original research that led you to that point?
I cheated. Essentially, I lived in Pierre for 16 years on 3 different tours of duty in the South Dakota state government. So Pierre and Fort Pierre were my adopted hometowns in the world.
Sure.
And when I worked in Pierre, much of the time I worked in the capital, and my experiences revolved around the landscaping projects on the Capitol grounds, the Hildreth's Gulch Park project. I was involved in the restoration projects of the Capitol. And I frankly played a very small role in all of those, but because I played a role, that gave me a flavor for what went on with the building and the grounds.
Sure, sure. So you were here roughly what sort of time frame is that? 80s, 90s?
I was here from 1980 to 86, and then returned in 1989.
Okay.
And stayed until 97, came back in 2001 and 2002.
All right, excellent. Flipping forwards again, I suppose, and you mentioned the readers that you had sent it out to. What was the most intriguing or interesting suggestion that was made to you as a result of that?
3 of the subsets to whom I mailed the manuscript were people who had served and are serving in the legislative, executive, and judicial branches of South Dakota state government. And people in the executive and legislative branches made substantial contributions to the accuracy and to the flavor of the book. But above and beyond that, the people in the judicial branch were absolute stars of the process. I'm not sure why that is. I have a theory about everything, so I have a theory about this.
I'd love to hear it.
One theory is it's just the particular personalities who are involved in the judiciary right now in South Dakota. But beyond that, I think the entire judicial branch is based upon precedent.
Sure.
That's how they build their decisions and their court cases. That's how they look at the world. And any group of people who are so serious about precedent, the fact that past is prologue, those people would have a natural bent toward history. That's my theory.
That makes sense. Well, thanks very much, Marshall.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure to speak to you, and thank you. Good luck with the book.
Thank you.